sort of covered yet what it's about and how you actually sort of code it. The reason, the sort of reason why you're sort of using a service in the first place is that typically you're interacting with your web server through a client. That's somebody sat in front of a browser, sending across some information to your web server, and then the web server's extracting information from that browser, doing something with it, perhaps connecting to a back-end database, perhaps sending it across to another Java application, maybe extracting the data out of what you've got and sending it in XML or JSON off to another application. It perhaps might use JNI, the Java native interface, to interact with, say, a C program or an external language. It's possible for Java to interact with other languages using this Java native interface. So if anybody's got that as part of the project, I can point you in that sort of a direction for it. But it's the job of the web server to pick up this data that the client sent them, the explicit data and the sort of implicit one, if you like. The client will probably be interacting with their user through some sort of form, some sort of data being put in here, fitted in Paula 37. There might be a send button on here for it. Now, at some point, that data has got to be sent over to the user, and everything on here we refer to as this explicit data. But in the background of the browser, there's things like saying, well, this is running IE9. You're currently running this under Windows 10 or whichever. Here's some cookies. Some sort of hidden data as well. And the browser also sends that over, called the implicit data. Implicit meaning you can't sort of see it for it. And it's the role of the web server to pick that data up, to receive it over at that web server end and do something with it. So it gets over to, presumably these two get over to the server. And your server has to extract out that data and do something with it. Now the type of, if you remember your advanced programming, when you did invoke that, you send it over either as what they call a GET request or a POST request. With a GET, all that info, the data is in the URL. With a POST, the data's in the body that goes over. But in either case, the server's got to pick that up. By part of the URL, we'll see it in a moment, but basically you've got to go into the server and then the app, and you'll pass over some question marks like name equals Paula and age equals 37. That's like the GET format, if you like, to send it over. Whereas if it's in a POST, you don't have this set of URL data. It's sent as a separate series of lines after in the body itself, and you don't actually see it in the URL. But it's the role of the server to extract that, do something with it. So presumably, if I sent over Paula 37, I might have an ID of 1500. So it could be that what this is then doing is generating some data. It might go off to a database. So you go into your database and select where ID equals whatever that number is that they've got, 1500. Get out the data concerning this sort of Paula, what the employment record is, what their order details are, whatever. So somehow something's happening on that web server application. Now that's the thing that you're dealing with. That's the thing that you're writing, whatever your application's up to. To take that data from the front end, do something with it, and then send the results back. So once you've got that basic data, you then want to return it back to your client. So send the explicit data back to the client, the thing that they see, but also the implicit data, things like response codes, like was that page actually found that you weren't looking for? Is there some problem with authorization? Are there any cookies you want to set in the client? So some of it will be implicit data that you're sending back as these headers to it. The type of data you send back depends on who your client is. Now, if this client was, say, as we've got here, a browser, it's come from a browser, the browser will typically be expecting HTML to come back, so you'll send back HTML data. You'll wrap your data up in, your results up in HTML. Later on, we'll be saying, well, look, this client isn't necessarily a browser. This client could be another application. It could be some sort of app. In this case, it'd be a JavaScript app running as a separate process, and that'll request the data, and I'll get my results coming back either in JSON or XML. Now, this is the version that we're more interested in on the, well, certainly in case of the assignment, in terms of web services for coming back. This is the sort of thing that you're generating in web applications, things that have their front end that interact with the user. We're not really dealing with that here. We're going to be dealing with the sort of program-to-program interactions. So sending back, in our case, XML, JSON, or some sort of custom data format. That we'll look at next week, how to do that aspect. Also some links to online documentation should you want that. But how these things look in terms of their code, the things that are over here, in our case, servlets. Now you wrote your own servers in the advanced programming, where I think you created things like socket connections, and you sort of read the incoming input stream and all that. And really you were concentrated on how the server works. And what Apache Tomcat does for you is to take care of all that communication. You don't have to deal with data input streams or setting up the output stream. It will sit in front of your servlet and talk to the outside world and just give you the raw data. It'll supply you an object with that sort of data in it. And this is sort of about the simplest version that you'll get. They're all built upon this HTTP servlet class. So the basic object that they all extend is the HTTP servlet, and then you'll name your own version of it. But by doing that, when they extend it, you've got to implement either a get handler for the data coming over as part of the URL, or a post handler. And you create yourself a do-get method, which always takes two parameters. This request object of type HTTP servlet request and the response. And all your incoming data, all this data that it's sent over, all the explicit data, all the implicit data, all the cookies, all the browser details, all that sort of thing, all the form values, they all get wrapped up and placed into that request object. And inside here, you just pick it up. You just say, out of that request object, can you give me this? Now, the thing that does that packaging up of the object is your Tomcat. It will deal with the communication and give you just this straightforward request object. And we'll see just on a couple of slides down how you actually extract the parameters. What it also does is expect you to build up a response. And you'll build up a response object and say, well, here's what I want you to send back to that user. So here's my HTML, or here's my JSON, here's my XML, whatever sort of type of data you're sort of getting out. Now at the moment this isn't picking up anything out of the request object. The key things here are in red. What I'm sending back, I'm going to ask the response object to say, look, when you send this data back to the user, just tell them that what they're getting now is text HTML. That's a content type, and the browser will receive that, one of these bits of implicit data that it gets back, is the response type, so that the browser knows, well, this data that's coming in, is it HTML? Is it a JPEG? Because I can handle JPEGs. Is it a PNG file? What type? You know, is it a movie file? Whatever type of file your browser can handle, you set the content type for it as it's sort of coming in. And this print writer that I'm just creating here, on response.getWriter, this is so I can do the equivalent of print line and just send my data back. By creating a print writer, in this case just called out, just like you have system out print line, I can now just say out.println, and whatever I print just gets sent straight back to my browser. So anything inside my print line is going to the browser. And because the browser is expecting, in this case, HTML, it means that whatever I print has got to be HTML. So you can see there that you've got your HTML just coming out as prints to it. Now, in some ways, this is where servlets aren't always a great thing, because for generating HTML, it's a bit fiddly. To generate HTML, whenever you've got a sort of complicated layout, you're doing all these things as print statements inside your